So let's talk about Trey's Angels. Trey was the first time for me. Trey's Angels was a part of the Berkeley BYA Berkeley Youth Alternative after school program. It was like a percussion class, and there was this Jamaican guy named Trey who came, and he like I don't think he was even paid for it. He just volunteered his time with this after school program to teach percussion. So he basically created a band, and there were like four members in our band. It was myself, Shanice, Rainiqua, and I think it was Stephanie, or it might have been this other girl, Karen. But it was a very small group, but we would go in and we would practice or whatever. And initially, I was assigned to the snare drum. That was great. I loved the snare. I was having a blast on the snare. But then Trey did this thing where he like forced everybody to switch positions, and he put me on the fucking shaker. It was like this like wooden thing with the beads around it, and it had the salt in the inside, and you just shake that motherfucker. And I got it, and I was so pissed because I was like, I want to be on the snare drum. I don't want this fucking shaker. This is whack as fuck. I'm so mad, and I complained every day. I cried. I was pissed, but he's like, well, everyone needs to experience all of the instruments, and I was like, no, I want to get back on the snare, but he put Rainiqua on the snare. Now the other girl, Rainiqua, was how can I explain this? Like, her lived situation was very different than mine. If we're talking about things like pretty privilege, colorism, all this stuff, like she was very like darker skinned girl from a very like low socioeconomic background. Probably all the things that you'd qualify for a very poor black girl. Like, she was like dealing with that stuff. Now I wasn't dealing with that stuff, but she was, but we were in the same group. Now I was like 8 or 9, so I didn't know any of this, but I do think that like her having this experience of having privilege, especially over privilege over someone like me at the age of 9, was actually probably really important. And it wasn't like a one up. It was more like it was a teamwork exercise, which when I think about it now as like a person who's older, as a person who's been in leadership positions, I understand why that stuff is useful. Because like if you see yourself as a member of the team, then you will realize that there are some times when you need to let someone else who is not like typically the person who's in the starlight have a moment in the starlight so that they understand too their impact and significance on the team as a whole. It was a lesson I learned later. Anyway, later on in life, Trey, who was my teacher, was friends with the mom of a girl who I was on a dance team with. She also went to the after school program I was part of. And Trey was like a super baller. I didn't even know this, but he was like, he had this like mansion in LA, and we had this dance competition going on. So we ended up staying at Trey's house in LA. And Trey was actually out of town doing some show or whatever, but his wife was hosting us. And his wife was this like super beautiful, like Somali woman. She definitely looked like just like Nagad, like that, but she was like his wife. And they were raising these like three kids, and I just never seen Trey as like a father or like a, like a husband, all that stuff. And so to see him in that role, just to see like the fruits of his labor in a sense, and then like participating, and he's like hosting us, and we're at this dance competition, just all of it was like, wow. It made me think about all the lessons that Trey taught me when I was just in his class, you know what I'm saying? And I think that that type of stuff is important. So yeah, Trey's Angels, I've never talked about that before, but I did want to give just like a minute for what it was and the impact it had on me, because like I won't ever forget Trey. I always remember him, but even more than that, I always remember his wife, and I think that's why I navigated to Nagad as soon as I saw her online, because she reminded me of Trey's wife, and I was just like, wow, that is why those people are important.